Welcome to Strange Coordinates, the show where we use brands as roadmaps to arrive at surprising places. I'm Robert Baylog.
And I'm Topher Burns. Robert and I founded an advertising agency called Territorial after lifetimes of working with some of the biggest and best loved brands. We help brands to find their place in the world, and we do that by exploring how history, culture, desire bounce off one another to reveal insights about what is cool about being a human.
That's right. This is how we get our kicks. Every episode of this show, one of us gives the other a brand to explore, and that person has to trek off into the wilderness and see where that brand takes him. They will find stories that could be fun, stories that could be surprising. It's all about using brands as compass points to discover more about the world around us.
And today, the brand that we selected to lead Robert off into the wilderness brought him back with this outfit.
For those of you who are not consuming this on YouTube, I'm in, this is casual workout gear. Just the bandana, the sleeveless shirt, the guns a-blazing.
It's really good. It's
Thanks.
A solid look. And it's really centering me in the Nordic Track vibe, which is the brand that we're going to explore today.
I can't decide what era this is.
It's like Nordic Track, but like you listen to Poison while you're Nordic tracking. Maybe?
It's 100% Bret Michaels.
Yeah.
I was going to say this is the Bret Michaels because it's got the thick band, which he was using to mask his complete lack of hair, and I'm using to mask my five head that I've had since I was about 9 years old. So Topher, I want to ask you, what led you to assign a Nordic Track?
Oh, it's a good question. It's a brand that has a little bit of nostalgia to it. It's also a brand that I feel potentially has some lessons for the world we're in now. I'm interested by the fact that for me, it was my entryway into sort of like fad workout machines. It feels like that began a thing that has never stopped since then.
Amazing. I'm glad that you did not say that you had kind of like lurked my history and seen that this is yet another brand that was connected deeply to my personal past. So thank you for that. But
it did seem like it triggered some stuff for you, even when we talked about it just briefly at the end of the last episode.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I had to pack down some of that trauma again. But
now it's going to explode.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, actually, there's no trauma there. It's just it is connected to a lot of memories. And you're right. Nordic Track really contains multitudes. There's a lot you could talk about when it comes to Nordic Track. It's got a very long storied history. But I want to start with God mode.
What? Yes,
God mode. So
I don't even know what that is. I'm scared.
I know. Well, okay. So if you grew up when I did, then when you hear the name Nordic Track, you probably think of the ski machine, right? And natural, that was, as you mentioned, sort of like it started a trend. But actually today, Nordic Track is one of the top selling line of treadmills in the world. They actually have, yeah. Nordic Track has a whole variety of different types of lines. So they've got ellipticals, they've got stair steppers, and their treadmills are the top selling in the world. These aren't like these sort of wood and bungee cord contraptions that you're thinking about. They're top of the line. They have all these amenities. And, of course, in the modern day, one of those amenities needs to be a huge screen. So on a lot of these, the most popular models of Nordic Track, they have up to 32-inch screens on these machines.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So ostensibly, these were installed so that you could access the company's sort of proprietary workout videos and things like that. But if you've got a massive screen on your treadmill, most people really want to be able to access all the media that they have in their sort of media ecosystem. They want to watch Netflix, they want to watch ESPN, they want to watch the Prime Video.
Yeah.
And it's been an open secret for a while on some of these machines that you can access, i.e. hack, the operating system through the programmers, what the company calls the privilege mode, but what users call God mode.
Whoa. So you can just do your own, like I can just like I can log into my own Hulu account and then watch Lego Masters, which is all that I'm watching right now.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
So what's amazing about this is that the hack is deliciously complicated. Are you ready for what the hack is?
No. Is
Okay,
it up, down, up, down, down, left, right,
What?
left, right?
Stop! You're like completely jumping the shark on this
Oh,
one.
no.
Yeah. Okay. So it's tap the touchscreen 10 times.
What?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wait 7 seconds. Tap the touchscreen 10 more times, and all of a sudden the whole thing is unlocked. Yeah.
What?
So that's God mode.
That's Nordic Track's secret little back entry.
that's
Is they
the-
like
that's the
if
back
you-
door.
if it's ever sort of programmed and has a bomb in it, then
Yeah.
like we'll be able to avoid Nordic Track becoming the like headline brand in Speed 4 running to nowhere.
Totally. But the thing is, you mentioned that code. It's known as the Konami code. Up, down, down, left, right, left, right.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's what was
Yeah.
that?
Contra.
Contra.
It's like the most famous cheat code in history.
Totally.
And we're laughing at the simplicity of this sort of like backdoor into Nordic Track, but that's
Yeah.
actually purposeful. So the Konami code was developed at Konami Games. This guy Kazuhisa Hashimoto, he was a programmer on Gradius, but the game was too difficult, and he created a backdoor so that as he was like testing it and things like that, he would be able to actually complete it to be able to test it.
Totally makes sense.
Right.
'Cause you're like, I'm not gonna sit around. Like, if I want to figure out how to like get through level 9, I don't want to have to just like slog through.
Yeah, it's interesting because the company, they did not deny the existence of this backdoor.
Yeah.
They did not shut down conversation around it for quite some time. And they also, in some of their sort of like side literature, even gave people the ways to get at it. So like the user manual for the Nordic Track did not say, hey, by the way, you can crack our machine.
Right.
But some of like deep in some of the literature around the fitness video content, there was like a thing that somebody found that kind of unlocked this for them. This is all like, I'm getting this from this amazing article in Wired about this, so incredible reporting about it.
And so, do you know how did somebody just like, they're like, well, I was tapping a bunch and then eventually some shit happened.
I'm sure it's like something simian like that. You know what I mean?
Wow.
That's basically how fire started. Like it's just sort of like really primitive. Well, so after tolerating this for some time, the makers of Nordic Track decided they didn't like people futzing around in their code, and so they pushed an update that blocked access to this. That pissed off like a
bet.
ton of users because
Once you
A
get
lot of
used
them-
to like, oh, I'm gonna watch Game of Thrones.
right,
And,
totally.
You're like, you log in and they're like, no, you have to stare at the wall. And you're like,
Right.
"Oh." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so many of them actually had bought this machine purposefully because they had heard about this
Whoa.
ability to like use that screen to do this. And so they felt like they paid for this product. They should really be entitled to use it any way they wanted. And that, to me, that really puts Nordic Track in the middle of the sort of most critical debates that we're having right now about consumer rights in the digital era. It's, this is all tied up in the right to repair debate, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. It's
Okay.
tied up into like larger issues of ownership. What does it mean to sort of like have a physical object that has a digital ephemeral part to it? And so that becomes really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to think about like how we got here.
Yeah.
And to do that, we're going to need to go back to the 70s. But don't go too far,
No.
because we want to take a pit stop in the early 90s.
Okay.
All right. So the place is Chantilly, Virginia. The year is probably around 92, 93. A young Roberts coming home from college,
Tearing sleeves off his shirt.
sleeves off his shirt. I can't imagine the atrocity that was my style back then, but I'm sure it wasn't great. So coming home from college on break, and I'm walking into my parents' house, and in the upstairs spare bedroom is this contraption, this machine. It feels like there's pieces missing. The base is made out of wood. It's sort of like, feels pre-industrial in many senses. And this was the Nordic Track ski machine that had shown up in my house. It was not for me. It was actually a thing that my mother had wanted. And I want to tell you a little bit about Cecilia Baylog, who is a kind of amazing person. So Cecilia Baylog was in many ways the sort of, or is, and has been the kind of magazine cutout version of a suburban wife in many ways. At the same time, she was also a person who ran her own business, successful business for 30 years, woman-owned business.
That's cool.
And then the Nordic track happened. So sort of early 90s, the Nordic track happened. You know, my dad would go to the gym. My mom had her space in the morning where she would do her exercises and watch her morning shows. And I think about this person who created these moments and these spaces, whether or not it was her business or her sort of physical health, created these spaces for self-direction and for autonomy when that wasn't always sort of readily given out to women in culture. A lot of people talk about the fact that the rise of aerobics, the rise of home fitness is connected to a kind of the demand for bodily autonomy from women in the 70s. So men went to gyms, but they were not welcoming places for women, and the home environment, as well as like sort of special studios like aerobic studios, became these places of empowerment. And you know, there's a really complex relationship between fitness and feminism, and that the sort of image-obsessed 80s did a lot to kind of poison the vibes there. Like the 70s were about like, let's take it back, and the 80s were sort of about the male gaze being reasserted, and the notion of image became more important than sort of value and self-worth. But this context that we're talking about, this sort of like context of bodily autonomy and fitness and home fitness, is the context in which the Nordic track actually came into being. So I want to take us to the origins of the Nordic track.
Okay.
So it's a cold, crappy day in Chaska, Minnesota in 1976.
Of course, this starts in the Midwest.
Of course, yeah, you're familiar with Chaska. Everybody knows a Chaska. And Ed Pauls, who was an engineer at Rossignol, the ski equipment manufacturer, was training. He was an avid cross-country skier, and he was out training. It was just terrible. It was like wet, sleety, snowy crappiness. And he was like, there's just got to be a better way to do this. And
There's gotta be a better way.
Gotta be a better way. And so the Nordic Track ski machine was invented in Ed Paul's garage in 1976.
Yeah.
He and his wife, Florence, ran the company for 10 years. It was a telephone and mail order company. It was entirely manufactured in Chaska. They trained local people to like be, stay in the woods and build the flywheels and all this kind of stuff. Neat. And it was this, what's that?
Neat. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great.
Local
like a hometown.
Story. Yeah.
Exactly. So he and his wife, Florence, they ran the company. And actually, Florence is sort of the unsung hero here, because it was kind of her fastidiousness, her financial acumen that really kept the company moving in the right direction.
She and Cecilia doing the hard work.
Exactly. So they ran the company until they felt like they were at retirement age. They sold it in 86 to a company and then took it and then expanded it. It experienced huge growth from that point on. From the mid 80s to the mid 90s, it skyrocketed. So the company was sold for like 26 million. And then by like 1993, it was clearing 500 million annually in revenue. So it was a really big juggernaut. By the 90s, the new company that had purchased Nordic Track was like, this is amazing. We've got ourselves the golden goose.
Yeah.
And they expanded into retail. And by 1997, 10 years after, maybe 11 years after they had sold, the Pauls had sold, Nordic Track declared Chapter 11.
Oh, R.I.P.
Yeah,
hopefully
massive.
The Pauls got theirs.
They got out. They're fine. Yeah. So it's okay. The story didn't end there, because in 1998, a company called Icon basically purchased the name and expanded the product line, which is, as we said, among the top selling across treadmill, incline, elliptical in the world. So the Nordic Track name is the thing that sort of carried on and has continued to hold that equity, which brings me to a really fun segment around brand names that I want to explore with you, because the original name that Ed Pauls wanted for Nordic Track was Nordic Jock.
Now, I mean, is that in my search history? Sure.
1,000%.
But is that
1,000%?
Is this the type of content I'm looking for in those moments?
Yeah. Nordic Jock.
Wow.
There's this, yeah. So
And you'd say Gen Pop not listening when you say Nordic Jock. They're like, me, like,
tell me more.
Tell me more. Lay it on.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, a typical engineer, like he got the machine down perfectly, but the branding was just like not ideal.
Who helped him with that? Do we know who convinced him that that was a terrible idea?
I read that, one of the people that he was working with early on this machine was his daughter, who was also a collegiate cross-country skier. And I think women who had come into contact with it in general were like, yeah, don't do that.
That's a horrible, yeah, no.
Don't do that.
Buy that name, yeah.
So that brings me to this world of brands that could have been named something tragic.
Oh, okay.
But
yes.
But turned into something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna say the name that the brand was originally, and you need to guess.
Yay!
You need to guess what brand it actually became.
Games. Okay.
All right. Yeah, this is all about. Listen, we're fitness today. We're active. We're doing stuff. This is not passive. This is an active podcast.
I'm psyched.
Ready?
Yeah.
I'm gonna start you off with an easy one.
Yeah.
You gotta warm up. I don't want you to pull anything. Okay. This one may be pretty obvious. It started off as Pete's Super Submarines.
I would assume it became Subway sandwiches.
Ding, 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 ding.
Right.
We have a winner.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Next one. You may know this one. It seems like it's fairly well known in lore, but let's see. This brand was originally called Back Rub.
Oh, Tiger Balm.
Good guess. But no. It's Google.
What?
Yeah.
Back
Google
Rub.
was going to be called Back Rub.
I think it's hard to say, like hindsight 2020. It would, but yeah, Back Rub would be tough.
Yeah, I'm going to go Back Rub that. See, I just don't think that works as well.
Right, you can't become a verb. But they didn't know that they needed to become a verb yet.
That's true. You can't blame them. But something was telling them it was off. So kudos to them.
Yeah.
All right, next one. This brand was originally called Sound of Music.
Shazam.
No. Also, good guess. It was Best Buy.
Really?
Yeah.
What were they trying to become? And did they know that that name was sort of already SEO'd to the hilt?
Possibly.
Did they call Julie Andrews and she was like, listen, buddy.
Yeah. She's I don't want to get nasty,
But I will?
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. This is a fun one. This brand was originally called Unadulterated Food Products.
Whole Foods.
Good guess, but no. It is Snapple.
Oh. Nothing more adulterated than Snapple. You kidding me? Like caramel apple iced tea?
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'm glad they switched off of that, and so they're not just lying.
Yeah. Also, I like that both Snapple and Google went from kind of ungainly names to something that has
little pep in its step.
Yeah. All right, last one. This is a two-parter. There'll be a bonus one on it. Okay, so last one. It was originally called Jerry's Guide to the World Wide Web.
Oh,
Think of my email.
Your email?
My personal email, because I'm 4,000 years old.
Are you a Yahoo guy? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, at least I'm not hanging with a Hotmailer.
No. Okay, so bonus. This is a two-part bonus question. Bonus, Yahoo is an acronym, true or false?
Oh, I just want to say true because I want to find out what it is.
Okay, that's right. You got that one.
I didn't know that, but lay it on.
So then you're obviously going to not get the second part right. The second part, Yahoo is an acronym that stands for Yet Another Hierarchical Officious Oracle.
Oh, now I really do like that quite a bit. They managed to find their way into a Google, but keep an unadulterated food products.
Yeah, they've got the whole thing right there.
They really managed to do a lot. I have to say I did some work with what became Oath later and whatever,
Right.
but like I have retained some like Yahoo brand affinity from back in the day. I also have a Yahoo account.
All right, so the Nordic Track name It came through, it survived, and today it's thriving. And that brings us back to where we started today, which is sort of this idea around ownership. So, what does ownership mean when a company can push an update into a product without your consent and fundamentally change the way that product works? There's a lot of this happening right now, and I don't really have any of the answers here, but to me, it's a really interesting circle that we've created here, because I did some looking into the notion of ownership, and there's a lot of people that talk about sort of where did ownership start, where did private property, the notion of private property start, and there's no definitive answer. But I found this really interesting article or essay by Thorstein Veblen. Do you know who Thorstein Veblen is?
No.
Okay, so Thorstein Veblen was like an American sociologist, economist, kind of philosopher around the turn of the 19th century. And he wrote this article about the beginnings of ownership. It's a really long argument, but one of the places he lands was that the notion of personal ownership, he posits, was originally derived from the ownership of other persons, not derived from the ownership of things, because things were shared by communal groups, but through the ownership of persons, and specifically through the ownership of women who were forcibly captured in raids. There's an interesting connection here of like this idea of ownership being connected to gender, fitness being connected to ownership and bodily autonomy, and the idea of Nordic Track flouting or challenging people to understand what ownership means today in a capitalist society in which we also have digital copyright laws and IP that confuse the rights of the consumer with the rights of the manufacturer. Nordic Track is sitting at this incredible confluence of all these things that are happening at once, and it's really yet to be resolved which way it's going to go. We think about who's weighing in on these efforts. So Apple, for instance, kind of threw their weight behind the right to repair debate recently, except for in Oregon, where they felt that the Oregon law went too far. And then you've got, obviously, Nordic Track paying lip service to the right to repair, but then saying, well, we don't want you to be able to go that far and like mess with our code. So it's a really crazy confluence of a device whose history lies in the quest for bodily autonomy and this quest for self-ownership being wrapped up in this confusing morass of what does ownership in a capitalist society look like today. So Nordic Track took me on quite the journey, which I thought was going to take me to a very nostalgic place, but it took me to a place of what are really, what are the kind of the big issues that are happening right now for brands in a digital age.
The juxtaposition that you were talking about between Nordic Track then and Nordic Track now is very interesting in the world of ownership, because, you were talking about Nordic Track and videotapes, both of which would be things that you owned. You would totally buy the videotape and you would buy the Nordic Track. And so then later when you're watching a different videotape while you're on Nordic Track, it's all things that like fit the classic definition of like ownership. But nowadays you can get your exceptionally expensive machine on a like layaway plan or a payment plan. And then if you hack into that thing and watch Netflix, you're renting the content and you're renting the machine.
Totally. So that was my Nordic Track journey. That was my skiing into the backwoods.
Yeah, you really did glide your way all the way well into there and come back with some really cool stuff. But you know what? There's probably cool stuff in our future.
Yeah.
And Robert, tell us about what that cool stuff
might be based around. All right, buddy. Well, I don't know if you heard, but
I didn't. I hadn't heard. No.
We had this cute little eclipse.
Oh yeah, I had
cute little eclipse. Sort of thinking about it as one celestial body interacting with another, kind of giving, that light a unique quality, giving that light a special seasoning. So in honor of that amazing event, I'm giving you celestial seasonings.
Oh, okay. Not only is that well connected to some, timing things happening and some zeitgeisty stuff. You're a little bit of a tea guy.
I love some tea. I love some tea. I can't say that I love celestial seasonings. I'm going to be honest.
Ooh.
Most things about it are sort of offensive to me, including the graphic design.
Like too corny?
Yeah, the flavors.
Cubby wubby room room.
Yeah. a lot of it is just sort of like offends me on an aesthetic, philosophical, spiritual level.
Interesting.
But they're playing in the T space, so I want to give them.
I mean,
elevate.
I have a very opposite. My mom was a Celestial Seasonings gal. If you couldn't go to sleep, there was a mug of Sleepy Time tea with milk and honey in your future, and a very calm conversation about how dreams are not real, waiting for you. So
amazing.
I have some positive connections to this,
great.
but I'm really excited to discover more about what's going on in that world.
I'm deeply afraid there is some off the grid person who made their own soap connected to this that like
I mean, we can, I don't know, well, I will be the one to have to eat these words, but like we can assume that's in there somewhere, right? Yeah. Well, let's find out who they are. Shake their hand and thank them for their service.
Super excited about it. I can't wait. I can't wait to be steeped in that story.
That's amazing. Okay. Yes to all that. Love the wordplay. And for more wordplay, join us next time. Thank you, everybody. You have been listening to Strange Coordinates. This is the show where we use brands as roadmaps to arrive at surprising and fascinating places. Your hosts are Robert Brett Michaels Baylog and me, Topher Burns. To learn more about our agency, Territorial, go to our website. That's weareterritorial.com. You can join our mailing list there, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Shh. See you. I'm leaving on my Nordic track. Bye.
Brett Michaels.
Yeah.
Man, I have a little
bit of a dirtbag. Yeah. Strong dirtbag vibe.
Obviously. But I have a very strong emotional memory, not a clear like detail memory, but an emotional memory of I must have been in like 3rd or 4th grade, and I think it was the first time I had gone to like another kid's house for what was sort of like a party, like not just like a birthday party that was supervised by adults, but like my parents weren't there and somebody put on Talk Dirty to Me, and I was like, this is I'm living in a world of licentiousness right now. And I just have this memory in my chest somewhere of that moment of hearing that song.
Was it titillating or was it scary?
It was both. I mean, obviously it was both. I was raised like deeply Catholic, so like that was sort of like everything about that was a little bit like exciting and also terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was Spin the Bottle at some point there, but who knows?
Oh my gosh. I'd play Spin the Bottle today.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
in almost any context, like at a restaurant, so you'd be like, anybody down for this thing?